Hello, this is Carlos Rodriguez again, and now we made it to part four of profiling content, where what I want to make sure I focus my attention on is the part of this process where we actually are personalizing based on identifying the pattern that someone is falling into associated with the items they visit and the profiles they collect based on those items. So as I go to the next slide, the area I'm focused on are the last 2 points. In previous parts of this video episode, we talked about creating a movie dimension. We gave it a set of keys: action, animated, comedy, drama, horror, romance, and science fiction. And we applied this to items where for each item in which I applied the movie's dimension, each key had to be represented with a value, and that value went from 0 to 10. And the greater the likelihood that that item could be associated with a movie genre, the greater the value. So if it could be associated with an action movie, that'll be closer to 9 or 10. But if it cannot be associated with a romance movie, that'll be closer to 0 and 1. So we went through the process of creating profile cards because it allows us to assign all those keys at once per dimension on an item at one time. So it speeds up the process tremendously if we can identify and create profile cards where we indicate what the key value is going to be when the card is approached. But now that we've done that to certain items, we want to now take the next step and personalize our user experience based on the type of movies these individuals seem to like from a genre perspective. So in order to do that, we have to create pattern cards. So pattern cards are actually very close to what profile cards are. The big difference is we use a pattern card to drive personalization, so it is all about the visitors or the visit, while profile cards are about the items. So profile cards are primarily used on items to associate them with a specific profile, while pattern cards are used for the visit or the visitor to identify what pattern they seem to favor based on the profiles they collect as they go from item to item. So first I'm going to show you again the profile cards which have been applied to the items. That will then lead me into an example in the experience editor where I'm going to use the pattern cards I created to determine whether they favor a certain set of profiles more than they do others. So that will be the purpose of this fourth part of this discussion of profiling and personalization. So with that being said, I'm going to close out this presentation and go to my Sitecore instance. So in this Sitecore instance, what I'm going to do is first go to the content editor, and I might need to refresh this, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now that I've done it, what I want to do is the following. I'm going to recommend a movie, and I'm going to recommend a movie based on what holidays you like to visit. Now, what does holidays got to do with movies? Well, if I'm a marketer, let's say I decide there's actually a marketing taxonomy I have in mind, where if you go to certain vacations, you seem to savor certain movies. Yeah, it might sound a little ridiculous, but let's go with that for now. So, as an example, for my Battle of the Hills holiday, maybe I find that people who go on this particular vacation happen to like romantic movies as well. So I assigned it the romantic profile card, which provides high values for the romantic genre, but very low values for every other genre. If you want to see how this got applied, if I click on the profile icon on to the right, note that for movies, it already has a card assigned. I assigned it by clicking on the edit link, and then I chose the card. And I chose the card because by choosing the card, all the keys are assigned a value at once. If I didn't do that, then when I click on customize, I'm forced to assign the value to each key individually. Okay? Now, what the graph and these values seem to indicate is that the romantic card gives me 10 for romance. That's the highest value for that scale, but 0 for everything else. And that is what the romantic card means. So pretty much means you're a diehard romantic movie person and you really don't have any other interest in any other genre. Okay, but by applying romantic to it, all 7 of them get set, and the graph looks like a line because only the romance one is set to 10. All the others are 0. Okay, so with that being said, I'll just click on cancel because I don't want to make any changes. And that's what I did for a couple of these cards. So for Cotswolds Adventures, it's also romance. For Cycles San Francisco, it's also romance. If I go to Cycles Southeast Asia, note that what I applied to this one instead was the science fiction theater card, which means that if you go on this vacation, you're a diehard science fiction theater nut. Okay, not really a nut because I'm one of them, but you're certainly a fan. Okay, so in any event, I did that for a few of these items. So now what I want to do is show you what I did to provide the recommendation using personalization and pattern cards. So as I go to the Experience Editor, and you do that, by the way, by clicking on Publish, followed by Experience Editor. I have already done this, so if I go to this Home tab, and by the way, I'm doing it for this home item, so let me make that clear. So in essence, this tab is up because I clicked on the home item, then I did a Publish, followed by Experience Editor. So I'll go right to the tab since it's already open, and this is the component I want to use to personalize it, where if I'm able to determine that you like certain type of movies, I'm going to replace this content with a movie recommendation. So if I click on the component, this button right here is all about personalization. And note that for mine, it's already set. If I haven't set it, then the icon would look something like this. Okay. All right. So in any event, I'm going to click on this icon, bring up the personalization window, and talk about how I'm making this happen. I'll click on Edit Conditions, since I already have conditions in place. And it's going to pop up a window, and here we are. Now, it's typical when you're personalizing a component to have a default value, meaning that if I don't have any other reason to change you, this is the value you're going to be. So that the initial content you see is the default content I've set up. Because when you do personalization based on pattern matching, you do have a minimum number of profiles you need to collect in order for the process to make a decision. And typically by Sitecore, the default is 3, but that particular option can be changed if you need to. Okay, I won't show you that in this particular discussion, but I do want to make it clear that that is an option that you can update in the config file, so you don't have to wait as long if you don't want to. Or if you want to actually collect more profiles before a decision is made, you can also go in the other direction. Okay, so what I did was I set this up where if your pattern card is the Sci-Fi Guy pattern card, I'm going to recommend Rogue One. Otherwise, if you're more of the Date Night Special pattern card, I'm going to recommend Fences. Okay, so how did I set this up? Well, I click on Edit. Okay, and then I chose this particular, the word I'm looking for is condition. Thank you. I chose this particular condition to set up for my personalization. Though note that when it comes to personalization in Sitecore, you have a lot of different options. And even if you don't have the one you absolutely need, you can actually create one from scratch. But otherwise, it's far from just being limited to profiles and personalization. You can certainly personalize based on things that don't involve profiles, but in our example, we're just going to focus on profiles. Since there are so many of these, what I did to find this quickly was type in profile, and that allowed me to filter out to the point where I got a couple of profile ones, and the one I chose was this one. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. It'll mean that I'm pretty much setting it up twice, but I'll delete it afterwards. I just want to make sure I make clear how I set up this condition. Okay, now I could start with the pattern card, but note that when I click on that, it's going to say I need to select a profile first. That's because until I tell it what profile dimension to choose, it has no idea what pattern card list to pull out, because you can't mix and match pattern cards and profile dimensions. If I click on specific next to profile, I can then choose the dimension I want to personalize against. So I'm going to choose movies and click on OK. And then to choose the proper pattern card, I click on specific next to that. And then I can either choose Date Night Special or Sci-Fi Guy, and note that those are the two pattern cards I've created under the movies dimension in the marketing control panel. So let's see, I'm sort of forgetting which one I'm doing first, but that's okay. I'll just go with Sci-Fi Guy for now. And if I click on OK, now I'm saying if it matches the Sci-Fi pattern card, then I want you to do something. I have it in here twice, so I'll click on delete to get rid of the second condition, but that's why I set this first one up. I'll go ahead and click on cancel since we don't want to save any changes, and that's how I set this one up. And I did something very similar for the one above it. Conditions, by the way, are evaluated top down. So if it doesn't meet the Date Night Special pattern card, it's going to match it up against the Sci-Fi pattern card instead. And if it doesn't meet either of those, then it will hit the default. The good news is once you have collected enough profiles, it's going to make a choice. It's going to choose one of these two. Okay, so that's one of the good things about pattern cards. Once you have enough profile information, you can't fall out of a pattern card. You got to fall into one of them. Okay, all right. One other thing I'll mention is that if you choose this, one of your other options is to hide the component, so that you could get rid of the component altogether if a certain pattern card is met. Okay, so with that being said, I'm done with this. I'm going to go ahead and click on cancel because I really don't want to make any changes. But note that you can even preview what will happen if certain conditions are met. So if I click on the downward arrow here and choose sci-fi person, if I find they love sci-fi, I'm going to recommend Rogue One. And if I click on the downward arrow and I choose romance guy, then I'm going to recommend Fences with Denzel Washington in the movie. Okay? And Viola Davis. Who can forget Viola Davis? All right. So now this has all been set and it has all been published. So I'm going to do the following now. I'm going to bring up another browser, but incognito mode. And I'm doing that because once you're editing in Sitecore, even if you launch a new browser window, it remembers that. So it will try to put me back into an editing framework of sorts, since it thinks I'm trying to make changes to Sitecore. I want to do this in a way where I'm actually visiting the site for the first time. So I'm going to visit that site. It's simply called TrainCore in my example. I'll get rid of the Sitecore so it doesn't try to put me into an editing mode. And now I'm currently viewing the site. And note that there's my default half price content, but I want to replace it with a movie recommendation based on what vacation I decide to visit. So I'm going to click on Find and Book a Vacation. And let's see. I'll choose Battle of the Hills. And my coming here counts as one hit to the item. So I just collected profile information based on visiting this item associated with the movie dimension. If I refresh it, that counts as a hit. I'll refresh it a third time, knowing that 3 is the minimum. And now that I'm done, I'm going to click on Home. So if I click on Home, note that evidently the one I chose was for the romance one. So now it's recommending me the Fences movie. Okay. All right. So let's see if I could get to switch to sci-fi. I'm going to give this a shot. So I'll cross my fingers. Sci-fi would be one of the later ones. So let's see. I'm going to go with Cotswold's Adventure. All right. That counts as 1. I'll do 2. I'll do 3. Let's see what happens when I get home. Nope. Not enough. I'll try it one more time. This might be the wrong one, by the way. But I'll try it again. And nope. So that was probably the wrong one. But so I'll just let you know that if I would have hit a proper sci-fi one and done that enough times, I would have gotten this to switch. I could give something a shot here. Let me go back to my other while I have a little bit of time left. I just got confused in terms of my content editor, which one I'm using. Yeah, no, I wasn't using Cotswolds is the other way. So Cycle Southeast Asia. Okay, I'm going to give this one more try. I hit this quite a few times, so I'm going to have to hit the other one quite a few times. But it's worth a try. I need to find, let's see if it's on the second page. That's the one. Okay, so that's going to count as 1. I'm going to hit it at least 5 or 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see if that's enough. There we go. There's Rogue One. Okay. So that one won out because I hit the sci-fi more often than the date one. And also I believe that's the case because even if it was a tie, since the sci-fi was the last one I saw, I'm pretty sure recency also plays a role in what gets selected if there's a tie. All right, so that's how you can personalize using profile cards and pattern cards. I hope you found this very useful, and thank you for watching my video.